There is a kind of power that does not need to announce itself. It does not enter the room loudly. It does not compete for attention. It does not explain itself to every passing opinion or bend itself to every shifting mood. It simply stands there, calm, grounded, unmistakable. In a world addicted to noise, silence can look strange. Restraint can be mistaken for weakness. Privacy can be misunderstood as distance. And calmness, real calmness, can seem almost unnatural in a culture that rewards reaction, display, and constant visibility. But the Stoics understood something we are slowly forgetting. The person who masters himself does not need to dominate others. The person who is rooted within does not need to be constantly seen. The person who lives with discipline, clarity, and restraint carries a presence that cannot be manufactured. To be silently powerful is not to become cold. It is not to disappear. It is not to act mysterious for the sake of being noticed. It is something deeper. It is the ability to speak less, but with more weight. To remain calm when others become reactive. To stop begging for validation. To protect what is still growing inside you. To become difficult to disturb. Not because you feel nothing, but because you have learned what deserves your energy. This episode is an invitation to build a quieter kind of strength. The kind that does not demand attention, yet becomes unforgettable. If this message speaks to something in you, like this episode, share it with someone who may need it. And let's begin. 1. Speak less, but make silence. Strengthen your words. Most people are afraid of silence, not because silence is dangerous, but because silence reveals. It exposes the need to be approved of. It exposes the fear of being misunderstood. It exposes the hidden belief that if we are not constantly explaining, entertaining, or responding, we may somehow become invisible. So we rush to fill it. We speak before our thoughts are fully formed. We explain before anyone has truly asked. We defend ourselves before we have even been attacked. We add more words, not because the truth requires them, but because our insecurity does. And slowly, without noticing, our words lose weight. The Stoics understood that speech is not harmless simply because it disappears into the air. Words reveal the state of the soul. A restless person speaks restlessly. A disciplined person speaks with measure. A person ruled by ego uses words to prove. A person rooted in himself uses words to clarify. There is a great difference between silence that comes from emptiness and silence that comes from fullness. Empty silence is avoidance. It hides because it has nothing to say or because it fears the cost of speaking. But powerful silence is different. It is restraint. It is the calm refusal to spill yourself into every moment. It is the discipline of allowing your thoughts to mature before they leave you. When you speak less, you do not become smaller. You become more precise. Your words begin to arrive with intention. People feel that you are not speaking merely to occupy space. You are speaking because something needs to be said. And because you do not waste language, your language begins to carry presence. Think of the person who comments on everything. Every pause must be filled. Every silence must be broken. Every topic must be touched. At first, this may seem social, expressive, alive, but over time, the room stops leaning in. The words become atmosphere, always there, rarely remembered. Now think of the person who listens, watches, and chooses carefully. When that person finally speaks, the room changes. Not because the voice is louder, but because the restraint before it created weight. This is not a trick. It is not a performance of mystery. Trying to seem mysterious is still a form of begging to be noticed. Silent power is not manufactured through distance, it is earned through self-command. The question is not, how can I look more quiet? The question is, why do I feel the need to speak when silence would be stronger? That question can reveal much. Maybe you speak too much because you fear being forgotten. Maybe you over-explain because you do not trust people to understand you. Maybe you defend yourself because part of you still believes every opinion is a threat. Maybe you fill silence because stillness forces you to meet yourself, and you are not yet comfortable with what you find there. This is where the real work begins. To speak less is not merely a communication habit, it is a spiritual discipline. It asks you to tolerate discomfort without escaping through words. It asks you to let a sentence stand without weakening it through repetition. It asks you to allow others to think what they think, without rushing to manage their perception. There is power in ending a sentence and letting silence follow. There is power in saying no without building a courtroom around your decision. There is power in saying, I disagree, without needing to humiliate. There is power in saying, I need time to think, instead of pretending to have instant wisdom. The more deliberate your speech becomes, the more your silence becomes part of your voice. People begin to sense that you are not leaking energy. You are not performing intelligence. You are not trying to prove your worth through constant expression. You are choosing. And choice is what gives speech dignity. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to return to simplicity, to say only what is necessary, to act only according to reason, to avoid being dragged by vanity or impulse. This applies deeply to speech. Many words are not born from truth. They are born from the desire to appear wise, funny, important, superior, innocent, impressive. But when you remove that desire, something cleaner remains. Truth. And truth does not usually need as many words as ego does. So, practice restraint. Before you speak, pause. Ask yourself, is this necessary? Is it true? Is it useful? Is it coming from clarity or from discomfort? If the answer is discomfort, breathe. Let the silence stay. At first it may feel unnatural. You may feel the urge to fill the space. You may worry that people will misread you. Let them. Not every moment requires your explanation. Not every silence is an emergency. Over time, your relationship with silence will change. It will no longer feel like absence. It will feel like strength. It will become the space where your thoughts deepen, your emotions settle, and your words gather force. Speak less, not to withdraw from the world, but to meet it with greater precision. Let silence refine you. Let restraint protect your energy. And when you finally speak, let your words arrive from a place so steady that they do not need to be repeated to be remembered. 2. Remain steady when others lose themselves. There are moments when the room begins to change. A voice rises, a face tightens, a sentence becomes sharper than it needed to be. Someone's fear turns into anger. Someone's insecurity turns into accusation. Someone's pain spills outward, looking for a place to land. And in that moment, you are invited, not formally, not with words, but emotionally. You are invited to become reactive too, to match the tone, to return the insult, to defend yourself too quickly, to let another person's inner disorder become your own. Most people accept this invitation without noticing. They do not choose their state. They inherit it from the loudest emotion nearby. If someone is angry, they become angry. If someone is anxious, they become anxious. If someone becomes disrespectful, they abandon their center and meet disrespect with more disrespect. But the silently powerful person does something different. He remains steady, not because he feels nothing, but because he has trained himself not to be ruled by everything he feels. He can notice heat rising in the body, tension entering the chest, the first impulse to strike back, and still choose not to surrender his character to the moment. This is one of the deepest forms of strength. The Stoics understood that other people will not always be reasonable. They will be impatient, unfair, wounded, arrogant, confused, reactive. To expect otherwise is to keep demanding that the world become easier before you become wiser. But Stoicism asks something harder and more liberating. It asks you to stop making your inner state dependent on someone else's lack of self-control. Epictetus taught that we do not control what others say, think, or do. We control our judgments, our choices, our response. This distinction sounds simple when life is calm, but its truth is tested when someone provokes you, when your pride is touched, when your image is threatened, when your nervous system wants to fight. That is where philosophy becomes real. Calmness under pressure is not a personality trait. It is a practice discipline. It is the result of repeatedly choosing the pause instead of the explosion, the breath instead of the reaction, the principle instead of the impulse. When others lose themselves, your first task is not to win. Your first task is to return to yourself. Because if you lose yourself in order to defeat someone else, what have you actually won? Many people confuse reaction with strength. They think the strongest person is the one who responds fastest, speaks loudest, cuts deepest. But often that is not strength at all. That is emotional obedience. That is a person being commanded by anger while pretending to command the room. Real strength is slower. It gives itself one breath before answering. It lowers its voice when the other voice rises. It refuses to let chaos choose its language. It understands that dignity can be firmer than aggression. This does not mean you allow disrespect. Calmness is not surrender. Steadiness does not mean becoming passive, silent, or weak. You can set a boundary with a calm voice. You can disagree without becoming cruel. You can walk away without turning the exit into a performance. You can say, "I will speak with you when this becomes respectful." You can say, "I hear you, but I will not continue if we speak this way." You can say nothing and let your stillness end the game. The goal is not to suppress your emotion. Suppression creates pressure. The goal is to govern it, to feel the emotion fully enough to understand it, but not so blindly that you become it. This is the quiet power people remember. They may forget your exact words. They may forget the details of the conflict, but they will remember that when the emotional temperature rose, you did not become smaller. You did not become chaotic. You did not hand your piece over to the loudest force in the room. You stayed anchored. And anchoring changes the atmosphere. A steady person can lower the emotional temperature without demanding control. His calm becomes a kind of gravity. Not everyone will respect it immediately. Some people may even become more reactive at first, because your refusal to join their chaos exposes their chaos more clearly. Let that happen. Your job is not to manage every reaction to your steadiness. Your job is to remain loyal to it. Practice this in small moments. When someone interrupts you, pause before responding. When sarcasm appears, do not immediately return it. When criticism touches your pride, breathe before defending. When someone is angry, listen for what is true, but do not absorb what is toxic. These moments are training grounds. Every time you remain steady when you could have reacted, you strengthen the part of you that is free. Every time you lower the temperature instead of feeding the fire, you become less available to manipulation. Every time you choose dignity over impulse, you become harder to move against your will. And this is the heart of silent power, not being untouchable, not being emotionless, not pretending to be above people, but being so rooted in yourself that another person's storm does not automatically become your own. Remain steady when others lose themselves, not to appear superior, but because your character is too valuable to place in the hands of someone else's reaction. 3. Release the hunger for immediate validation. There is a quiet form of dependence that many people never notice. It does not look like dependence at first. It looks like politeness, awareness, sensitivity, a desire to be understood, a wish to be seen correctly by the people around you. But underneath it, if you look honestly, there is often a hunger, the hunger to be approved of immediately. You say something, and before the words have even settled, your eyes search for a reaction. Did they like it? Did they agree? Did their face change? Did they misunderstand me? You make a choice, and almost instantly, some part of you begins looking outward for confirmation. You want the nod, the reply, the reassurance, the visible proof that you are still accepted. And slowly, without realizing it, your inner life becomes dependent on the weather of other people's responses. This is dangerous because people are unstable mirrors. They are distracted. They are tired. They are wounded. They are interpreting you through their own fears, biases, and unfinished stories. If your sense of self depends on immediate validation, then your peace will always be in the hands of something unreliable. The Stoics understood this deeply. They knew that public opinion is one of the weakest foundations on which to build a life. Praise comes and goes. Approval changes with mood. Recognition often arrives late, and sometimes never arrives at all. But character must not wait for applause before it stands upright. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself again and again not to live for the praise of others. Not because people do not matter, but because their opinions are not the center of reality. A person who is ruled by approval cannot be truly free. He must constantly adjust himself to remain liked. And this is where silent power begins to form. You stop begging to be understood in real time. You stop treating every silence as rejection. You stop rushing to correct every misunderstanding before it has even had time to breathe. There is strength in allowing people to misunderstand you briefly. This does not mean you become careless with your communication. It does not mean you refuse accountability. It means you stop panicking every time someone does not immediately see you with perfect clarity. Some truths need time. Some people need distance before they understand. And some people will never understand, because understanding you was never their intention. A person hungry for validation cannot tolerate this. He over-explains, he chases, he reshapes himself, he tries to manage every perception, soften every edge, repair every possible doubt. But in doing so, he often weakens the very dignity he is trying to protect. A life spent constantly explaining itself becomes a life lived on trial, and you were not born to stand forever before the court of other people's reactions. Releasing the hunger for validation does not mean becoming arrogant. It does not mean pretending feedback is useless. Wise people listen. Wise people learn. Wise people can receive correction without collapsing. But there is a difference between receiving feedback and needing approval to feel real. Feedback can refine you. Validation can become a cage. Ask yourself honestly, how often do I change my behavior because I want to be liked immediately? How often do I soften a truth because I fear the discomfort of disapproval? How often do I explain myself, not because clarity is needed, but because I cannot bear being seen imperfectly? These questions cut deep, because they reveal how much of our personality can become performance when we are afraid of losing approval. The person who releases this hunger becomes difficult to manipulate. Compliments do not intoxicate him. Criticism does not destroy him. Silence does not erase him. He can stand in a room without needing the room to confirm his worth. He can make a decision without turning every observer into a judge. This is quiet self-possession. It says, I will listen, but I will not worship opinion. I will care, but I will not be controlled. I will explain when explanation serves truth, not when it only serves fear. At first, this will feel uncomfortable. You may feel exposed when you do not rush to clarify. You may feel anxious when approval does not come quickly. You may feel the old urge to chase reassurance. Pause there. That pause is where freedom begins. Let the discomfort rise, and do not obey it immediately. Let the silence exist. Let people sit with their own interpretation for a while. Let your life, your consistency, and your character explain what your anxiety wants to explain too quickly. Over time, something inside you becomes stronger. You realize you can be unseen and still be valuable, misunderstood and still be clear, unpraised and still be excellent, disliked and still be whole. And from that place, your presence changes. You no longer enter rooms asking silently, do you approve of me? You enter with a quieter question. Am I aligned with what I know to be true? That is a different kind of power. Release the hunger for immediate validation. Let approval arrive late, or not at all. Let your worth stop depending on instant recognition, because the more you need to be constantly confirmed, the easier you are to control. But the more rooted you become in yourself, the less the world can move you against your will. 4. Let your presence feel anchored, not anxious. Before people hear your words, they often feel your state. They feel the speed of your energy, the tension in your face, the restlessness in your hands, the urgency in your movements. The way you enter a room, either as someone who is settled within himself, or someone quietly asking the room for permission to relax. Presence begins before language. This is why grounded people are memorable. They do not need to perform confidence. They do not need to dominate the room. They carry a certain stillness, not a dead stillness, not a cold one, but the stillness of someone who is not running from himself. Most people leak anxiety through the body. They rush their speech. They laugh before they are truly amused. They check their phone when silence appears. They move too quickly, respond too quickly, explain too quickly. Their nervous system is always trying to escape the present moment. And others can feel it. Not always consciously, but deeply. An anxious presence says, I am not fully here. A grounded presence says, I do not need to leave myself to belong here. The Stoics understood that inner disorder eventually becomes visible. A scattered mind creates scattered behavior. A restless soul creates restless movement. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to return to simplicity, to do what is in front of him, to remain composed, to stop being pulled apart by unnecessary impressions. That is what an anchored presence really is. It is the body expressing an inner agreement with the moment. To be anchored does not mean you never feel nervous. That would be unrealistic. You are human. You will enter difficult rooms. You will meet people whose opinions matter to you. You will face uncertainty, pressure, judgment, and attention. The point is not to eliminate the body's natural response. The point is to stop letting anxiety lead your presence. Start with your pace. Walk a little slower, not dramatically, not as an act. Simply stop moving as if urgency owns you. Let your steps communicate that you are not late to your own life. Let your body learn that speed is not the same as strength. Then, notice your hands. Do they constantly search for something to hold, fix, check, adjust? Do they reveal nervous energy that your face is trying to hide? Let them rest. Let your gestures become fewer, cleaner, more deliberate. Containment creates weight. Then notice your breathing. An anxious person often breathes as if the world is closing in. A grounded person breathes as if there is space. Slow the exhale. Let the body receive the message that this moment is not an emergency. These are small things, but small things repeated become identity. You are training your nervous system to remain at home in your own body, and this matters because people trust what feels settled, not perfectly polished, not artificially confident, settled. There is something deeply reassuring about a person who is not constantly spilling tension into the room. Someone who can sit still, listen fully, speak without rushing, pause without panic. That kind of person changes the atmosphere, not through force, through gravity. But be careful here. Grounded presence is not a costume. You cannot simply imitate slow movements and call it power. If you slow your body while your mind is still begging to be admired, people will eventually feel the performance. True anchoring must come from a deeper place. It begins with the belief that you do not need to earn the right to exist in the room. You are not there to be approved of every second. You are not there to entertain every silence. You are not there to adjust your entire nervous system to the comfort of others. You are there, fully, calmly, respectfully, as yourself. This is where presence becomes philosophical. A person who is internally anchored has accepted one simple truth. External environments will always shift. People will like you, misunderstand you, praise you, ignore you, question you, welcome you, reject you. If your presence depends on all of that becoming favorable, you will never feel steady. So you build steadiness before the room responds. You build it in silence, in posture, in breath, in the refusal to rush, in the quiet decision to stop abandoning your center every time the external world changes mood. Practice this in ordinary moments. Stand in line without reaching for distraction. Sit in stillness without performing busyness. Speak more slowly when pressure rises. Let your face soften before you answer. Enter a room without immediately scanning for validation. Let your body say, "I am here," before your words try to prove it. Over time, something changes. You begin to feel less like a visitor in your own life. You stop moving as if chased by invisible judgment. You stop mistaking restlessness for importance. You stop letting nervous energy introduce you before your character does. And people will remember that. They may not know why your presence felt different. They may not have language for it. But they will feel that you were not scattered. You were not desperate. You were not trying to pull energy from the room. You were grounded. Let your presence feel anchored, not anxious. Let your body become evidence of inner order. Let stillness become part of your strength. Because the person who is settled within himself does not need to demand attention. His presence quietly receives it. 5. Protect what is still becoming. Not everything in your life is ready to be seen. Not every dream is strong enough to survive the noise of other people's opinions. Not every goal has deep enough roots to withstand premature exposure. Not every emotion becomes clearer when it is displayed. Not every transformation becomes stronger when it is announced. Some things need silence before they need witnesses. There is wisdom in protecting what is still becoming, because what is unfinished is also vulnerable. A new discipline can be weakened by too much attention. A fragile ambition can be interrupted by careless doubt. A private healing process can become distorted when it is forced to perform itself for others. Many people expose their lives too early. They speak about goals before they have built the structure to support them. They share plans before they have tested their own commitment. They announce change before change has become character, and sometimes, without realizing it, they trade the quiet energy of becoming for the quick reward of being seen. This is a subtle trap. The moment you announce something, part of you may feel as if progress has already happened. The applause, curiosity, or approval of others can create a false sense of movement. But being admired for what you intend to do is not the same as becoming the person who can actually do it. The Stoics would warn us here. They were less concerned with appearing disciplined than with becoming disciplined, less concerned with being praised for wisdom than with living wisely. A private life rooted in principle was more valuable than a public image decorated with intention. Privacy, in this sense, is not fear. It is not secrecy. It is not hiding because you are ashamed. It is not building walls around your life so no one can reach you. True privacy is self-respect. It is the ability to say, "This part of me is still growing, and I will not expose it before it has strength." There is a difference between sharing and leaking. Sharing is intentional. Leaking is impulsive. Sharing comes from clarity. Leaking comes from the hunger to be reassured. Sharing strengthens connection. Leaking often weakens your own trust in yourself. Ask yourself honestly, what have I exposed too early? What dream did I talk about more than I worked on? What emotion did I display before I understood it? What part of my growth became performance because I invited too many eyes into a place that needed solitude? These questions matter because modern life encourages constant display. We are taught to turn every beginning into an announcement, every feeling into content, every decision into an identity, every private shift into a public signal. But not everything sacred should be immediately visible. Seeds grow underground. Roots deepen in darkness. The most important parts of a life often develop away from applause. When you protect what is still becoming, you give your inner work the conditions it needs to mature. You allow your discipline to become real before it becomes visible. You allow your confidence to grow from evidence, not attention. You allow your transformation to take shape without being constantly interrupted by explanation. And this creates a different kind of power. People may not know exactly what you are building, but they will feel that something in you is becoming stronger. They may not hear every promise you make to yourself, but they will eventually see what those promises produce. Quiet growth has a way of revealing itself without needing to be advertised. This does not mean you should never seek guidance. Wisdom often requires counsel. A trusted friend, mentor, or teacher can help protect what is growing in you, but choose carefully. Not everyone deserves access to your unfinished self. Not every person can stand near your becoming without trying to shape it according to their fear. Some people will doubt you because your growth threatens the version of you they understood. Some will advise you from the limits of their own courage. Some will ask questions not to support you, but to reduce you back into something familiar. Be careful. The silently powerful person does not make his entire inner life public property. He does not hand fragile dreams to careless hands. He does not turn every wound into a performance. He does not announce every standard before he has lived it. He protects the private workshop of his becoming. There is dignity in this. There is maturity in allowing some things to remain between you and your own soul. The goal you are building, the habit you are strengthening, the grief you are processing, the identity that is slowly forming beneath the surface. Let some victories remain quiet. Let some changes be discovered through your presence, not your explanations. Let your life surprise people because you were too busy building to keep announcing. Protect what is still becoming, not because you are afraid of being seen, but because you respect the process of becoming too much to expose it before it is ready. Because some things only become strong when they are allowed to grow unseen. 6. Become difficult to disturb. To become difficult to disturb is not to become cold. It is not to turn your heart into stone. It is not to pretend that nothing hurts you, nothing disappoints you, nothing reaches you. That kind of hardness is often fear wearing the mask of strength. True steadiness is different. It is the ability to feel something fully, without letting it rearrange your entire inner world. It is the ability to notice irritation rising, without handing it control of your mouth, your mood, your decisions, or your day. It is the quiet discipline of saying, "This may touch me, but it will not own me." Most people are disturbed too easily. A delayed reply changes their mood. A careless comment stays with them for hours. A small inconvenience becomes proof that the whole day is against them. A stranger's tone becomes a story. A minor disagreement becomes an identity threat. Their peace is not anchored. It is constantly negotiated with circumstances. And that is an exhausting way to live. The Stoics understood this with unusual clarity. They knew that events themselves are often smaller than the meanings we attach to them. Epictetus taught that we are disturbed not by things, but by our judgments about things. A thing happens, then the mind names it, enlarges it, personalizes it, dramatizes it. And suddenly, a small stone becomes a mountain. Someone does not greet you warmly, and the mind says, "They disrespect me." A plan changes, and the mind says, "Nothing ever works for me." You make one mistake, and the mind says, "I am failing." This is how disturbance grows, not only from the event, but from the story wrapped around it. To become difficult to disturb, you must become more careful with the stories you allow to enter you. Not everything deserves interpretation. Not everything deserves emotional meaning. Not everything deserves to sit inside you and take up space. Some things should pass through. This does not mean you ignore real problems. If a boundary is crossed, respond. If responsibility calls, act. If something matters, meet it with seriousness. But seriousness is not the same as emotional collapse. You can respond firmly without becoming internally chaotic. The silently powerful person knows the difference between what deserves attention and what merely demands it. That difference is everything. Ask yourself in moments of irritation, does this deserve my peace? Does this deserve my focus? Does this deserve my breath, my energy, my entire nervous system? Will this matter tomorrow? Will this matter in a year? Or am I giving a passing discomfort the emotional budget of a real crisis? That question restores proportion. And proportion is one of the foundations of wisdom. A person without proportion makes everything large. Every inconvenience becomes dramatic. Every criticism becomes personal. Every disappointment becomes betrayal. But a person with proportion allows small things to remain small. He does not build temples around temporary discomfort. There is something unforgettable about a person who is not easily shaken, not because he is emotionless, but because he is governed. His calm has weight. His presence says, "I choose what enters deeply. I choose what stays. I choose what deserves a response." This kind of steadiness is built in ordinary moments, when traffic slows. Practice not surrendering your peace to impatience. When someone interrupts you, practice not tightening immediately. When criticism comes, listen for what is useful and release what is only noise. When irritation rises, feel it, breathe through it, and let it pass without giving it a throne. These are small moments, but they are not small training. Every time you refuse to be possessed by something trivial, you strengthen your freedom. Every time you let a small thing remain small, you reclaim energy for what truly matters. Every time you pause before reacting, you remind yourself that your inner state is not public property. This is where silent power becomes visible, not in dramatic victories, not in grand speeches, but in the way you remain intact when life becomes inconvenient, in the way you stop letting every little thing pull you away from yourself. And yes, people will notice. They will notice that you do not panic easily, that you do not take every bait, that your mood does not swing with every comment, that you do not give your energy cheaply to irritation, gossip, or provocation. But more importantly, you will notice. You will feel the relief of no longer being emotionally dragged by everything around you. You will feel the dignity of choosing your response. You will feel your life becoming quieter, not because the world became quieter, but because you stopped letting every noise enter as a command. Become difficult to disturb. Let small things stay small. Let passing emotions remain passing. Let the world move without making every movement your master. Because a person who is easily disturbed is easily controlled, but a person who guards his inner state, calmly, wisely, deliberately, becomes quietly powerful in a way the world cannot easily touch. 7. Let discipline speak before you do. There is a quiet authority in a person whose life speaks before his mouth does. You can feel it before he explains anything, in the way he keeps time, in the way he honors small commitments, in the way he returns to the work when motivation disappears, in the way his standards become visible, not through declaration, but through repetition. Many people speak beautifully about the life they want to build. They announce their goals. They describe their future discipline. They talk about the person they are becoming. And in the beginning it feels powerful because intention has energy. A new identity feels exciting. A new plan feels almost like progress. But it is not progress. Not yet. The Stoics understood the danger of confusing words with virtue. To speak about wisdom is easy. To live wisely when pride is touched, when comfort tempts, when no one is watching, that is the real test. Epictetus warned against turning philosophy into performance. Do not explain your principles too much. Embody them. This applies to discipline. Do not rush to tell people how serious you are. Become serious. Do not describe your standards before you can sustain them. Build them. Do not advertise your effort before it has roots. Protect it long enough to become real. There is a subtle trap in talking too early. The moment you announce a goal, you may receive attention for the identity. Before you have earned it through action, people may praise your ambition, admire your intention, encourage your vision. And for a moment, the mind tastes the reward of becoming without enduring the cost of becoming. That reward is dangerous. It can make the idea of discipline feel like discipline itself. But reality does not respond to what you intended. Reality responds to what you repeat. A disciplined person is not someone who feels motivated often. He is someone who has built a structure stronger than his moods. He does not ask every morning whether he feels like honoring his standard. He has already decided. And because he has already decided, his energy is not wasted negotiating with weakness every day. This is the difference between image and character. Image says, "Look at what I am trying to become." Character says nothing and becomes it. Silent discipline has weight because it cannot be faked for long. Anyone can speak with intensity for an hour. Anyone can claim transformation for a week. Anyone can appear focused when the room is watching. But consistency across time reveals the truth. Time exposes performance. Time also confirms substance. Ask yourself honestly, do I speak about my standards more than I live them? Do I want people to respect the idea of me before I have built the reality of me? Am I addicted to announcing change because announcement feels easier than repetition? These questions are uncomfortable, but useful. They bring you back from performance to practice. The quietly disciplined person builds in private. He wakes up and keeps the promise. He chooses the difficult thing when the easy thing is available. He does the work when no one praises it. He resists the impulse to turn every effort into a story. He lets the evidence accumulate. One completed task, one kept promise, one temptation refused, one morning honored, one evening used well. These small acts may look ordinary, but they are not ordinary. They are the invisible architecture of self-respect. Over time, discipline begins to speak. People notice that you are reliable, that your words are not inflated, that your life has direction, that your standards are not seasonal, that you do not need to be watched in order to remain aligned. And when discipline speaks through your life, your actual words become stronger, because now they are backed by proof. This is why silent proof creates deeper respect than self-description. Self-description asks to be believed. Silent proof leaves less room for argument. It does not demand admiration. It simply becomes difficult to deny. But remember, discipline is not meant to make you harsh. It is not a weapon for judging others. It is not a way to feel superior. True discipline should make you more grounded, more humble, more capable of serving what matters. If your discipline only makes you proud, then ego has entered the practice. The Stoic aim is not to appear impressive. It is to become free. Free from the tyranny of impulse, free from needing perfect conditions, free from being controlled by comfort, laziness, distraction, or applause. Discipline is not a prison. It is the structure that allows your higher self to actually live. So let your discipline speak before you do. Let your habits introduce you. Let your consistency defend you. Let your results arrive quietly, as the natural consequence of a life built with patience. And when you do speak about your standards, let your life stand behind every word. Because the person who constantly explains his discipline may still be trying to convince himself, but the person who lives it has nothing to prove. 8. Make your attention rare and fully present. Your attention is one of the most valuable things you own, and yet, most people spend it as if it costs nothing. They give it to every notification, every opinion, every interruption, every minor drama, every passing demand, every voice loud enough to pull them away from themselves. Their mind becomes an open door, and anything that knocks loudly enough is allowed to enter. But attention is not small. Attention is life. What you give your attention to you slowly give your life to. What you repeatedly notice, you strengthen. What you keep returning to, you become shaped by. A scattered attention creates a scattered presence. A scattered presence creates a scattered life. The silently powerful person understands this. He does not give full presence to everything. He does not allow every person, every problem, every argument, every digital noise to claim equal access to his mind. He knows that attention must be protected, because attention is the doorway through which the world enters the soul. The Stoics spoke often about guarding the mind, not because the world is evil, but because the world is endless. There will always be something asking for your concern, something demanding your judgment, something trying to convince you that it deserves your emotional energy. But wisdom begins when you stop treating every demand as equally important. To make your attention rare does not mean becoming arrogant. It does not mean acting distant, superior, or unavailable for the sake of appearing powerful. That would still be performance. True selective attention is not coldness, it is intention. It means you listen deeply when listening matters. It means you are fully present when presence is deserved. It means you stop scattering yourself across things that do not deserve the best of you. There is a profound difference between being kind and being constantly available. Kindness can be clear. Kindness can have limits. Kindness can say, "I care, but I will not give my entire mind to this." Without boundaries, even kindness becomes self-abandonment. Ask yourself honestly, what has been receiving my attention without earning it? Which conversations drain me without deepening me? Which distractions have trained my mind to become restless? Which small dramas have I allowed to occupy space meant for my growth, my work, my peace? These questions reveal the architecture of your inner life, because the quality of your life is often the quality of what you repeatedly attend to. When you give full attention to someone who matters, let it be full. Put the phone down. Listen without preparing your next sentence. Let your silence become generous. Let your eyes, your stillness, your patience communicate. I am here. This kind of attention is rare now, and because it is rare, it is unforgettable. People remember the person who truly listened, not the person who simply waited to speak, not the person whose eyes kept drifting toward a screen, not the person whose presence was divided. They remember the one who made the moment feel real. But when something does not deserve your attention, withdraw it without guilt. You do not need to attend every argument. You do not need to answer every provocation. You do not need to consume every opinion. You do not need to become emotionally present for every crisis created by someone else's lack of discipline. The power is in choosing. A reactive person gives attention automatically. A grounded person gives it deliberately. He knows that his attention is finite, and because it is finite, it is sacred. He saves his deepest presence for what aligns with his values. Meaningful relationships, serious work, truth, growth, solitude, discipline, and peace. There is also a quiet mystery in selective attention. When people sense that your attention is not cheaply given, they value it more, not because you are manipulating them, but because you are no longer leaking yourself everywhere. You are no longer mentally available to every shallow pull. You are no longer treating your mind like public property. This is containment, and containment creates presence. You can be warm and selective. You can be compassionate without becoming consumed. You can be respectful without being endlessly accessible. You can listen deeply without becoming a dumping ground for every unprocessed emotion around you. This is maturity. To make your attention rare and fully present is to understand that where your mind goes, your life follows. So you stop giving your life away in fragments. You gather yourself. You decide what matters. You return to depth. And over time, your presence changes. People begin to feel that when you are there, you are truly there. And when you are not pretending. This honesty gives your presence strength. Make your attention rare. Make it deep. Make it intentional. Because the person who gives attention to everything eventually becomes shaped by nothing, but the person who chooses carefully becomes unforgettable. 9. Stop performing. Start belonging to yourself. There is a quiet exhaustion that comes from performing yourself instead of being yourself. It is the fatigue of entering every room and immediately asking, often without words, who do I need to become here? What version of me will be accepted? What should I hide? What should I exaggerate? What must I soften, sharpen, or reshape so I can belong? Many people live this way for years. They become fluent in adjustment. Around confident people, they pretend to be more certain. Around intellectual people, they force depth. Around loud people, they become louder. Around critical people, they become smaller. Around everyone, they keep editing. And slowly, almost invisibly, they lose contact with their own center. This is one of the most subtle ways a person abandons himself. Not through one dramatic betrayal, but through 1,000 small performances. A laugh that was not real, an agreement that was not honest, a silence that came from fear, not wisdom. A personality adjusted so many times that the original shape becomes hard to remember. The Stoics would call us back from this. They would remind us that character must not depend on the crowd. If your behavior changes completely depending on who is watching, then your values are not yet roots, they are costumes. Marcus Aurelius constantly returned to the same inner command: live according to nature, reason, duty, and truth, not according to applause, pressure, or public mood. To stop performing does not mean becoming rude, rigid, or socially careless. That is another performance. It means you stop editing your soul to fit temporary expectations. You can still be warm, you can still be respectful, you can still adapt your language to the moment. But adaptation is not the same as self-erasure. Social intelligence helps you connect. Self-betrayal helps you disappear. There is a difference. A person who belongs to himself can enter different rooms without becoming different people. His tone may change, his language may adjust, his manners may respond to context, but his center remains intact. He does not laugh at what he does not respect, just to be included. He does not pretend to agree, just to avoid a moment of tension. He does not make himself smaller because someone else is uncomfortable with his clarity. He does not trade truth for temporary belonging. This kind of integrity has a cost. Some people will not like you as much when you stop performing for them. They may say you have changed. They may call you distant, difficult, too serious, too confident, too quiet. But often what they really mean is this: you are no longer as easy to shape as before. Let that be uncomfortable. Growth often sounds like disappointment to the people who benefited from your self-abandonment. Ask yourself honestly, where am I performing most? With whom do I feel least like myself? What parts of me do I hide to remain accepted? What values do I compromise to keep the atmosphere smooth? What version of me gets applause, but leaves me feeling empty afterward? These questions are not gentle, but they are necessary, because every time you betray yourself to be liked, something inside you learns that love must be purchased through dishonesty. And over time, this creates a deep internal resentment, not always toward others, but toward yourself. You begin to feel tired, divided, unseen, because how can people truly see you if you are constantly sending them a version designed for approval? The silently powerful person chooses a different path. He would rather be respected for what is real than liked for what is false. He would rather endure brief discomfort than live in long-term self-disgust. He understands that belonging is only meaningful when the self that belongs is actually present. This is why authenticity becomes unforgettable. Not loud authenticity, not the immature kind that says, "This is just who I am," while refusing growth. Real authenticity is quieter. It is alignment. It is when your words, actions, boundaries, values, and presence begin to tell the same story. People feel that. In a world full of rehearsed personalities, someone real has gravity, not because he is perfect, but because he is not constantly negotiating his soul for approval. To belong to yourself, you must know what you stand for before the room tells you what it rewards. You must decide what you are unwilling to trade. You must make peace with being misunderstood by people who only liked your performance. And this takes courage, but it also gives freedom. You stop entering rooms as a question. You stop silently asking, "Who must I become to be accepted here?" You begin to enter as an answer. Calm, imperfect, respectful, but whole. Stop performing. Start belonging to yourself. Let your values organize your behavior. Let your presence become honest, not manufactured. Because the person who constantly performs may win attention, but the person who belongs to himself earns something far deeper: respect. 10. Build a life that does not beg for attention. There is a difference between being seen and begging to be seen. One is natural, human, sometimes necessary. We all want our lives to matter. We all want our work, our love, our effort, our existence to be recognized in some way. But begging to be seen is different. It is the quiet hunger that turns life into performance. It is the need to constantly signal that you are growing, succeeding, healing, becoming, winning, suffering, transforming. It is the inability to let anything meaningful remain private. It is the fear that if no one notices your life may somehow become less real. This is one of the great traps of modern existence. We have learned to confuse visibility with value. If something is posted, it feels more important. If something is praised, it feels more real. If people react, we feel confirmed. But the Stoics would challenge this illusion immediately. They would ask, if no one saw it, would it still be good? If no one praised it, would it still be worth doing? If no one applauded your discipline, would you still remain disciplined? These questions reveal the foundation of your life. A life built on attention is fragile because attention is unstable. It moves quickly. It forgets easily. It belongs to no one. Today it turns toward you. Tomorrow it turns elsewhere. If your sense of worth depends on being noticed, then your peace will always be rented, never owned. But a life built on substance is different. It does not need constant witnesses to remain meaningful. It does not depend on applause to continue. It does not collapse when no one is clapping, because it was never built for clapping in the first place. To build a life that does not beg for attention, you must invest more in depth than image. Depth is what you practice when no one sees. Image is what you hope people think about you. Depth is the private standard. Image is the public reflection. Depth asks, am I becoming stronger, wiser, more honest? Image asks, do they think I am impressive? The silently powerful person chooses depth. He builds habits that do not need announcement. He develops skill without turning every practice into proof. He creates meaning in private. He becomes more interested in being solid than being admired. This does not mean hiding your life completely. It does not mean rejecting recognition or pretending that visibility is always shallow. There are times to share, times to teach, times to celebrate, times to let your work be seen. But sharing from fullness is different from begging from emptiness. When you share from fullness, you are offering. When you beg from emptiness, you are asking to be completed. And people can feel the difference. A person who begs for attention often becomes restless when unseen. He cannot simply work. He must be watched working. He cannot simply grow. He must announce growth. He cannot simply enjoy a moment. He must turn it into evidence. Slowly, life becomes less about living and more about being perceived. That is a quiet tragedy, because the deepest parts of life cannot fully mature under constant display. Purpose needs privacy. Character needs repetition. Wisdom needs silence. Love needs sincerity. Discipline needs days no one applauds. If everything becomes a performance, even your growth begins to lose its innocence. Ask yourself honestly, what would I still pursue if no one ever praised me for it? What part of my life is real enough to survive invisibility? Where am I investing in image because substance feels harder? Where have I mistaken being noticed for being fulfilled? These questions are not comfortable, but they are clarifying. The Stoic path always returns us to what is within our control. You cannot control how much attention the world gives you. You cannot control whether people admire your work, remember your name, understand your depth, or recognize your effort. But you can control the quality of what you build. You can control your discipline, your honesty, your patience, your courage, your devotion to what matters. And that is where freedom lives. Build something that remains meaningful, even in silence. Build a character that does not need to be constantly praised to remain upright. Build a purpose strong enough that attention becomes a byproduct, not the fuel. Because the most unforgettable people are often not the ones trying hardest to look unforgettable. They are the ones who became deeply real, deeply focused, deeply rooted. They stopped begging for the room to see them and became too substantial to ignore. Build a life that does not beg for attention. Let your substance become heavier than your image. Let your private depth give strength to your public presence, and if recognition comes, receive it with grace. If it does not, continue anyway. Because a life built for applause becomes empty when the room goes quiet. But a life built from purpose remains powerful, even in silence. To be silently powerful is not to disappear. It is not to become unreachable, emotionless, or cold. It is not a mask you wear to seem mysterious. It is not the performance of calmness or the imitation of strength. It is something quieter and far more difficult. It is the slow discipline of becoming rooted in yourself. It is learning to speak less, not because you have nothing to say, but because you have stopped using words to escape discomfort. It is remaining steady when others lose themselves, not because you are above them, but because your character is too valuable to hand over to someone else's chaos. It is releasing the hunger for immediate validation and letting your worth stop depending on every reaction. It is allowing your presence to become anchored, not anxious. Protecting what is still becoming harder to disturb. Letting discipline speak before you do. It is making your attention rare and fully present. It is stopping the performance of self and returning to the truth of who you are. It is building a life that does not beg to be seen, because its depth is no longer dependent on applause. The Stoics would remind us that the outer world will always be unstable. People will misunderstand. Circumstances will shift. Praise will come and go. Attention will move elsewhere. But the person who has built an inner center does not collapse every time the world changes direction. That is the real power. Not control over others. Control over yourself. Not constant visibility. Quiet substance. Not loud confidence. Deep alignment. So build slowly, speak carefully, move with intention, guard your energy, protect your peace. Let your life become less performative and more true. And remember this: the most unforgettable presence is rarely the loudest one in the room. It is the person who no longer needs the room to confirm who they are. If this episode spoke to something in you, like it, share it with someone who may need a quieter kind of strength, and continue walking this path with me. Until next time, stay grounded, stay disciplined, and keep becoming powerful in silence.